In our headlines on this Monday, May 18th, here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung and his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump speak on the phone for about half an hour late Sunday to touch upon the latter's recent trip to China and to reaffirm bilateral ties. Also here in South Korea, a ceremony to commemorate the sacrifice of those in the city of Gwangju 46 years ago as they sought to uphold democracy. Meanwhile, Samsung Electronics and its labor union resume a fresh round of government-mediated negotiations on bonuses and wages today, ahead of a strike scheduled to begin on Thursday. President Lee Jae-myung and his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump were on the phone for about half an hour this past weekend to touch upon the latter's recent trip to China and to reaffirm bilateral ties. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
In a call made after the U.S. China summit, President Lee Jae-myung was briefed by U.S. President Donald Trump on the results of that high-stakes meeting. Their talks over the phone on Sunday night, Korea time, took about half an hour. In a Blue House readout, President Lee congratulated his U.S. counterpart for successfully concluding his first state visit to Beijing in about 9 years. He noted the importance of managing the U.S.-China relationship in a stable manner for peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific and around the world. Trump shared the results of his recent summit with China's Xi Jinping, ranging from Washington-Beijing relations, agreements on the trade front, as well as the situation on the Korean Peninsula and in the Middle East. Lee took note of their dialogue related to the Korean Peninsula, and Trump promised his role and contribution for regional peace and stability in close coordination with his South Korean counterpart. Shortly after the talks, the South Korean president wrote on his social media that they share the understanding that close communication and coordination between Seoul and Washington is more important than ever amid a rapidly changing global order. The two leaders also agreed to faithfully carry out the Allies' joint fact sheet announced last year, once again calling the agreement historic. The fact sheet stipulates Korea's commitment to U.S. investments for lower tariffs and close cooperation on South Korea building a nuclear-powered submarine. On the Middle East, President Lee assessed President Trump's leadership in resolving the issue and wished that peace and stability would be swiftly restored in the region. It was the first top-level interaction between Seoul and Washington since the leaders' meeting in Gwangju about 7 months ago. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
And upon his return home from China, Donald Trump has resumed his pressure campaign against Iran, fueling fears about the prospects of renewed military aggression in the Middle East. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump has put further pressure on Iran to come up with a ceasefire proposal that could be accepted. Writing in a Truth Social post on Sunday, Trump said that the clock is ticking for Iran, adding that they better get moving fast or there won't be anything left of them. Trump reportedly plans to convene his security advisors at the White House on Monday to discuss whether to resume military options as well. In an interview with the online media outlet Axios, Trump repeated that Iran was running out of time and that if it did not bring a better proposal to the negotiating table, the U.S. would attack more forcefully than before. The warnings follow a phone call between Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, where they reportedly discussed the possibility of resuming attacks on Iran. According to reports citing Iranian state television, the phone call lasted more than 30 minutes and ended shortly before the start of a meeting of Israel's security cabinet. Citing two anonymous Middle Eastern officials, the New York Times said that the U.S. and Israel have entered an intensive state of readiness with renewed attacks in mind. Meanwhile, with Trump voicing impatience at the deadlock, the Korea-built Baraka nuclear plant in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, caught fire on Sunday after being struck by a drone. The fire was on a generator located just outside a nuclear plant and caused no injuries or radiation alerts, with officials saying that all core systems at the nuclear plant are operating normally. The South Korean Foreign Ministry and Korea Electric Power Corporation also said there were no injuries to South Korean workers at the plant. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Back here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung will host Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi at his hometown of Andong tomorrow, that is Tuesday, for yet another summit session aimed at advancing practical partnership. Our political correspondent Moon Hae-ryun reports.
It will be the third time the two leaders have sat down together, and the agenda is wide-ranging. The meeting is the latest in a series of reciprocal visits the two sides have been building since they first met on the sidelines of last October's APEC summit in Gwangju, where they agreed to pursue regular high-level diplomacy. According to presidential chief spokesperson Kang Yoo-jung, the two leaders are expected to discuss practical cooperation across the economy, social issues, and the protection of their citizens abroad, with regional security and the situation in the Middle East also on the table. Analysts say the summit is less about any single headline agenda and more about sustaining the momentum the two sides have already built.
Rather than being driven by one specific agenda, I think this meeting is about continuing to stabilize the relationship. And within that, issues like energy security and supply chain resilience could come up as areas where the two countries find it relatively easy to cooperate.
The two leaders last met in January when President Lee visited Nara, Prime Minister Takaichi's home prefecture, for their second bilateral summit. President Lee said the two sides agreed to deepen cooperation on economic security, science and technology, and international norms, and to continue working-level talks on artificial intelligence and intellectual property. Perhaps most notably, the two leaders addressed a long-standing historical issue, agreeing to pursue DNA identification of the remains of forcibly mobilized Koreans and Japanese who died in the 1942 Jose coal mine flooding in Japan, which President Lee called a small but meaningful step forward. But beyond the agenda, much of the attention surrounding Tuesday's summit is on where it is being held. Andong is President Lee's hometown, and as this marks the first time the leaders of the two countries have exchanged visits to each other's hometowns, the Blue House described it as a meaningful opportunity to deepen the bond of trust between them. For Andong, long regarded as the spiritual heartland of Korean traditional culture, the summit also carries local significance, with residents drawing comparisons to Queen Elizabeth II's visit in 1999, which brought a lasting boost in tourism. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
On the local political front, the president has pledged to preserve the spirit of the sacrifice of those in Gwangju 46 years ago in upholding South Korea's democracy. Our Cho Young-eun files this report.
President Lee Jae-myung on Monday attended the 46th commemoration ceremony of the May 18 pro-democratization movement in Gwangju and delivered an address.
민주주의를 위해 기꺼이 자신을 내던졌던 5월 민주 영령들의 고귀한 넋 앞에 머리 숙여 무한한 존경과 깊은 애도의 마음을 표합니다.
The ceremony took place at the former Jeollanam-do Provincial Government Building, which served as a final stronghold of civic resistance during the movement following its restoration. Earlier, President Lee and First Lady Kim Hae-kyung also visited the May 18 National Cemetery to pay tribute to the victims of the movement and their bereaved families. The spirit of May 18 was also highlighted when making reference to the events of December 3, 2024.
12월 3일 내라는 아직 끝나지 않은 5월의 질문이었습니다. 저절로 오는 민주주의도 저절로 지켜지는 민주주의도 없습니다.
The government also pledged to continue efforts to document and honor the May 18 democratization movement so that the Gwangju of 1980 can continue to safeguard the nation's future. Also stressed in Lee's speech was the need for bipartisan support to ensure that the spirit of May 18 is reflected in the preamble of the nation's constitution.
정치적 이해관계를 초월한 모든 정치권의 지속적인 국민과의 약속이었던 것만큼 여야의 초당적 협력과 결단을 간곡하게 요청드립니다.
President Lee also pledged to rebuild the former Jeollanam-do provincial government building into a living K-democracy shrine. He further announced plans to establish a government-led system to register and honor those who contributed to the May 18 democratization movement. Amid multiple crises facing South Korea today, from slowing growth and deepening inequality to shifts in the global order and regional depopulation, the South Korean leader voiced hope for his country to move forward, following the values embodied by Gwangju. 조영은, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, South Korea's first annual document detailing its North Korea policy under the Lee Jae-myung administration places priority on peaceful coexistence. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young explains.
Peaceful relations first, before denuclearization or unification on the Korean peninsula. That's the message running through Seoul's new unification white paper, the first under the Lee Jae-myung administration. Released on Monday, the annual document lays out Seoul's policy for peaceful coexistence with North Korea. It appears to respond to Pyongyang's hostile two-states policy, stressing the need to move towards a, quote, peaceful two-state relations geared towards unification.
Since Yi took office, Seoul has suspended and dismantled loudspeaker broadcasts and halted anti-North radio transmissions and leaflet campaigns. Since then, the North stopped sending trash-filled balloons. At least, compared with before, inter-Korean tensions have eased.
The document cites how President Lee last August pledged to respect the North Korean regime, to not pursue unification that subjugates the North, and to not commit any hostile acts. Alongside exchanges and normalization of relations with the North, denuclearization is still a goal under the END initiative. However, the white paper admits the nuclear issue cannot be resolved quickly.
The previous Yoon Suk-yeol government clearly defined the North as an enemy, and its audacious initiative demanded denuclearization first. The Yi administration too seeks denuclearization, but not as a precondition for dialogue. It first aims to lower tensions and seeks dialogue, peaceful coexistence, and shared development.
Without an elaborate focus on unification, the white paper sets out ways to institutionalize peaceful ties, calling to restore inter-Korean contact channels, resume dialogue, and reduce military tensions. It also proposes a new inter-Korean basic agreement as a more durable framework. But experts say a more elaborate approach is needed to engage Pyongyang, which is still refusing contact with Seoul.
With its nuclear arsenal expanding rapidly, denuclearization looks increasingly unrealistic. The priority should be a nuclear freeze, followed by sanctions relief and steps to normalize the North's ties with the U.S. and Japan. Pyongyang must sense real benefits from cooperation with Seoul if it's to return to talks.
The ministry revealed earlier this month that North Korea revised its constitution to reflect its policy of distinguishing South Korea as a separate hostile state, removing symbolic references to unification. However, Seoul officials have noted that the North hasn't significantly sharpened rhetoric against the South. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And for the first time in 8 years, a North Korean sports team is here in South Korea for a regional women's football tournament. Our culture correspondent Park Eun-woo covers their arrival at the airport this past Sunday and more.
Greeted by the sound of camera shutters at Incheon International Airport on Sunday, North Korean football club Daeguang FC arrived in South Korea on a flight from Beijing, ahead of its AFC Women's Champions League semifinal clash against Suwon FC Women on Wednesday at Suwon Sports Complex. 39 North Koreans, including 27 players and sporting director Hyun Cho-ryun, walked through a crowd of about 100 reporters and security personnel. South Korea's Unification Ministry approved the delegation's week-long visit through May 24th, the day after the competition's final match, which is also taking place at Suwon Sports Complex. And it promised support for a successful event.
We'll cooperate with related organizations, including the AFC and the Korea Football Association, to ensure the competition is carried out safely and smoothly, in line with the spirit of an international sporting event.
The visit marks the first time that a North Korean sports team has traveled to the South for an international competition since the 2018 International Table Tennis Federation World Tour Grand Finals. On Sunday, civic and religious groups supporting inter-Korean exchange also gathered at the airport to welcome the team.
With the North Korea defectors in our church community, we came here together, hoping to meet the North Korean people. We hope sports exchanges like this can help ease tensions and open a path toward reconciliation between the two Koreas. We also plan to attend Wednesday's match as well.
Despite the warm reception, the North Koreans moved quickly through the terminal without interacting with anyone at the airport, nor did they respond to questions from reporters. After loading their luggage into the team bus, the delegation immediately departed for its hotel in Suwon. Founded in 2012 and based in Pyongyang, Daegoyang FC is backed by the North Korean consumer goods company Daegoyang and is considered one of the North's top women's football teams, having won multiple domestic league titles. Daegoyang FC from North Korea, now in the south, will now focus on preparing for Wednesday's semifinal against Suwon FC Women of South Korea. All eyes are on which team will advance to the final this Saturday. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics and its labor union resume a fresh round of government-mediated negotiations today amid hopes to avoid a costly walkout set to begin later this week. Our economics correspondent Kim Jun-hong reports.
Samsung Electronics and its labor union are engaged in last-minute negotiations over performance bonuses, with only days remaining before a planned strike. Monday's talks, led by the National Labor Relations Commission, come after negotiations collapsed about a week earlier. Following the latest mediation session, Commission Chair Park Soo-gun said the talks would continue until Tuesday. The union is calling for Samsung to formally guarantee a bonus pool equivalent to 15% of operating profit under its OPI, or Overall Performance Incentive System. It also wants the removal of the current cap that limits bonuses to 50% of an employee's annual salary. Management, meanwhile, insists on maintaining the current bonus calculation system and says it cannot accept eliminating the bonus ceiling. The company added that industry-leading compensation could be offered through special incentives if Samsung secures the top spot in the industry. Even the company's chair, Lee Jae-yong, stepped in on Saturday, delivering a public apology and appeal for unity. The strike is set to begin Thursday, with the union warning the walkout could last for up to 18 days. However, the planned full-scale strike has effectively faced a setback after a court on Monday largely accepted Samsung Electronics' request for an injunction, requiring staffing levels at key facilities to remain at normal levels during any industrial action. The government has also hinted at possible emergency mediation, with Prime Minister Kim Min-seok saying Sunday that all available measures would be considered to protect the country's economy. Under current law, the labor minister can suspend strike action for up to 30 days if a walkout is deemed likely to cause serious economic damage. Meanwhile, 3 days ahead of the planned strike, President Lee Jae-myung wrote on social media that labor should be respected as much as businesses, and management rights should be respected just as much as labor rights. He stressed that such a balance is essential under Korea's liberal democratic order and capitalist market economy. Kim Jun-hong, Arirang News.
In other news now, applications for the second round of financial assistance to alleviate the burden of soaring fuel prices kicked off on this Monday. Our Cha Yoon-kyung has details.
The South Korean government will begin accepting the second round of applications for its fuel price relief fund starting Monday. According to the Ministry of the Interior and Safety, applications opened at 9 a.m. and will continue through July 3rd. During the first week, a rotation system will be applied based on the last digit of the applicant's birth year. Those who didn't apply during the first round will also be able to submit applications during this period. The support program targets around 36 million people in the bottom 70% income bracket. Eligibility is based on household health insurance premium payments assessed in March of this year. For example, a single-person household with workplace insurance can qualify if the monthly premiums are 130,000 won, or about $95 or less. That is equivalent to an annual income of roughly 43 million won, or around $31,000. However, so-called high net worth individuals with taxable property assets exceeding 1.2 billion won
About $870,000 US or annual financial income from interest or dividends surpassing 20 million won or roughly $14,500 are excluded. Special rules were also introduced to ensure dual-income households are not unfairly left out.
For a single home owner, the assessed property value is around 2.6 billion won. Financially, assuming a 2% dividend yield, a 1 billion won investment is required.
The amount of support varies by region. Residents in the Seoul metropolitan area will receive 100,000 won, or about $73, while people who live outside the capital region will receive 150,000 won, or around $109. People in designated population decline areas and special support regions will receive up to 250,000 won, or roughly $182. Funds can be received via credit or debit cards, local gift certificates, or prepaid cards. The money must be used by August 31st at small businesses and affiliated stores within the applicant's local government area. Unused balances will expire after the deadline. 차윤경, Arirang News.
The Culture Ministry on this Monday announced intentions to launch a task force with the Korea Tourism Organization aimed at attracting foreign visitors through South Korea's many festivals. The festivals in question are a total of 10, ranging from the Suwon Hwasong Cultural Festival to the Hwacheon Sancheoneo Ice Festival. The task force will seek diverse promotional strategies to create tourism packages linked to these festivals that are better tailored to foreign travelers. Also among these efforts is partnership with travel agencies to transform the appeal of these regional festivals into increased global tourism. Film director Park Chan-wook has been awarded the top rank of Commander of France's three-tier Order of Arts and Letters, the country's highest cultural honor. The award was announced by the French Culture Ministry during this year's Cannes Film Festival, where Park is serving as jury president. He becomes the fourth Korean recipient of the high honor, following the late stage director Kim Jong-wook in the year 2002, conductor Chung Myung-hoon in 2011, and soprano Cho Soo-mi in 2025. Meanwhile, here in South Korea, Culture Minister Choi Hui-young was quick to share his words of congratulations to Park, calling the achievement a proud moment that demonstrates the global status of Korea's arts and culture.
Many of you may be wondering how long the spell of unusually early summer heat will last. Starting tomorrow, increasing cloud cover will help ease daytime temperatures a bit. The rain is expected nationwide between Wednesday and Thursday, which will bring temperatures back down to seasonal averages for this time of year. However, parts of the Gyeongsang-do provinces will remain hot tomorrow, with daytime highs climbing above 30 degrees Celsius. In the southern parts of Gyeongsang-buk-do province, the heat index is expected to hover around 31 degrees. So make sure to stay hydrated and limit outdoor activities as much as possible during the hottest part of the day. Many areas will also see very high UV levels during the daytime tomorrow. Also, ozone concentrations are expected to rise as well, so please take care. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 18 degrees, Chuncheon at 15 degrees, Busan at 18 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 27 degrees, Daejeon at 29 degrees, Daegu at 33 degrees. Looking ahead, on Wednesday, rain will spread across the country, bringing temperatures back down to seasonal averages.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, so do stay with us.